All right, once again, good morning. This is Mark Sewell. I'm a training manager with High Torque. Today we're going to discuss a little bit our bolting basics course. It's kind of a unique situation for all of us, especially with the training team here at High Torque. Just trying to kind of learn some new skill sets for some of us. One of them is going to be providing some of these courses for y'all where we can do this remotely. We can get some training done. And we want to talk today a little bit about the bolting basics course. This is an overview that will touch on the subject matter. We're not going to dive deep into the class like we would if we were actually doing the course, but we're going to merely discuss the topics that we will cover. Typically, this is a course, 6 months from now or 6 months ago, this is typically a course that would be led by your local sales representative. But in certain cases, we'll also have these that will be led by your training managers as well. So without further ado, let's get started on this. I think we've got good participation on the logins. So let's get going. Essentially, we break all of our courses down into one of three categories: pressure vessels, piping, machinery, joints, or mechanical or structural frameworks. This particular course just kind of lumps all three of them in together. That being said, if you have a specific need for your application, then we can design this course to emphasize whichever of these three categories you fall into, we can put into those. All right, so let's talk about the different topics that we'll cover. All right, first we'll cover bolting properties, the things that our whole premise is based on, which is a bolt as a spring. Now, I'm going to take a second to explain. I'm going through these slides. These slides are all slides that you would see in the course. I'm not going to go through this slide just like I would in the course, but I'm going to give you some examples of different topics that we will be discussing, such as a bolt as a spring, everything that we're talking about. And this is a premise. This is a premise for our course here. We would go into how that spring acts, how it acts compared to the joint, which is also acting as a spring as well. We will go even further. We'll get into a little bit of the math and science. We'll talk about Hooke's law and the effect that Hooke's law, what role that plays in bolting. When you keep a bolt within certain parameters, it follows this law to a T every time. So it's important to kind of know some of the scientific principles behind what's going on with that bolt. And so we'll delve into a little math and science as well. From there, we will talk about tightening with torque. There's two different ways to stretch a bolt. The first one we'll discuss is tightening with torque. We would give some features about threaded fasteners, talk a little bit about the mechanical advantage, the way the threads are on the bolt, the way that mechanical advantages allows you to stretch that bolt. And then we'll get into the formula for torque itself. Again, this is a basic bolting course. It's not going to get into a lot of the numbers that you're having to figure out, but at the same time, it will talk about the basic scientific premises behind this. It'll give you some examples on various ways to achieve the same torque values. As you can see, the examples here are given in foot-pounds. I know that is primarily a U.S. terminology. We can always flip this over into Newton meters if need be. I know in the U.S. the wind industry does a lot of metric stuff, and then worldwide that is the most common. So this can, these presentations can be altered somewhat if we need to primarily use metric over imperial. As I said, we'll talk about different ways of achieving torque. We'll touch on the different tools that allow you to achieve torque, especially when you get into higher torque values and your manual torque wrenches become less and less. Um, I'm not going to say reliable. They're going to be less accurate because you bring in more of the human factor. Whereas when you're using hydraulic powered or electric powered, pneumatic powered, these are way more consistent when you get into higher torque values. From there, we go on to reaction forces. We'll talk about Newton and his third law and how that relates to bolting. It turns out that's pretty important, especially if you want to keep your fingers. Um, Reaction forces, why they're important, what role they play, what is a good reaction surface, why do we want that flush against your reaction surface? What happens to the tool if it's not flush? On into pinch points, whether they be both active pinch points or passive pinch points. Either way, um, these are very, very serious, or there are very serious consequences if you don't have a healthy respect for the injuries that can occur. And we will absolutely put an emphasis on the safety feature or safety aspect over and over again throughout the course of the class here. The next we talk about friction. Friction plays a large role in the energy that is lost and how it can be combated. It's not going to ever be completely eliminated, but you can combat the energy loss with lubrication. We would talk about the proper way to lubricate, the proper location to lubricate. From there, we'd go to washers. Washers provide three advantages. These are it's ASME PCC. One recommends through hard washers for every bolted joint. I realize that in some cases, whether it's company policy or customer policy, doesn't have they don't have washers on their joints, and I understand that. But as far as the recommendation, it's recommended that they have them, and so we're going to talk about them, and we're going to delve into the advantages of having that. From there, we would talk about the high torque washer system and all the advantages that come not only from a washer standpoint, from a safety standpoint, the different safety aspects that the high torque washer system can provide, and eliminating pinch points both on the active and passive side. Um, we would delve into that pretty deep there. So the second way that we go about stretching a bolt is tensioning. We're going to we're going to stretch it without torsion when we get into tension. Now our tensioning section of the bolting basics is pretty simplified. We talk about the components of a tensioner and we talk about the basic steps. Don't get super deep in that. We have some courses that do get deeper into tensioning, and at times if we need to combine some courses or alter or customize those things, that we can do that as well. Our probably our most popular section that we see, I guess, customer wise, that has the largest share of our customers is the pressurized joints. And so we do go into pressurized joints pretty deep. We talk about the parts of a pressurized joint. We talk about the most common flange faces, along with things like alignment issues that are most common with these applications. Um, this is a gasketed joint, so we have a section that we specify on different, we'll talk about different types of gaskets, um, different examples of different types of gaskets that we see throughout various industries, um, and kind of get into the gasket and what role it plays in the pressurized joint, because it's a very significant player. Then from there, we'll talk about the parallel joint closure. Essentially, this gets into the interdependence of bolts. And when you, as you apply torque on one, it affects all those around it. Because of this, it is recommended that you go in a pattern and in gradual steps. And we will break this down. We will talk about the pattern that you, or a pattern that you should use. It's not the only one, but is a recommended one. And we'll talk about the steps that you should go about as you are tightening your joint, to the point where we'll get into this, like I said, this specific, the +4 method. We'll go through and actually teach this method, showing you how to number these, showing you how it's going to work out, why this is a, we'll break it down as to why this is a good method. Just, briefly, if you look at this joint right here in front of you that's numbered, if you'll notice that all of the odd numbers are on the right, are on the right side. All the even numbers are on the left side. All right, what this does is this walks this down, as you're tightening it, walks it down, and it lends itself to keep from crushing gaskets, assuming that you're doing the gradual passes, past 120, 20 to 30% of your total torque value, past 2, and so forth. It's incredibly important, especially in a gasketed joint, to follow these steps, and we get into the importance of these steps as well. Just to take it a step farther, I know that there are certain customers out there that are using multi-tool. We'll actually get into the multi-tool and the numbering and sequence of those as well. So yes, this focuses on single tool, but we have a part, a couple slides in here that will discuss using multi-tool as well. We end up, our conclusion is kind of, we go over safety. Safety is sprinkled out throughout this entire course. It's not, it's an important part of each and every section, and we will touch on safety aspects, but at the end, we want the student to walk away with the last thing that they're hearing us say is talk about safety. And there's different parts of safety that we'll talk about. First part, we'll go over PPE. All right, things that each and every facility has their own requirements as far as PPE is concerned. There's a few things listed here. At times they'll have other requirements. At times they'll have fewer requirements. We usually will do most of our courses in controlled environments, but even within controlled environments, we still are going to have PPE requirements. We're always going to have some eye protection, always going to have some type of hand protection, foot protection. If we're in a shop, maybe we have hearing protection as well. We'd adhere to any of the requirements that particular facility required. But you need to be aware that these things are put in place, that they're put in place for a reason, whether that's a past injury or a company that is being proactive about preventing those injuries from ever taking place. So this is, kind of body safety, if you will. And then we'll get into tool safety, hazards, pinch points. From here, even we'll expand this even a little bit more and discuss things like tool safety, as far as things that you can check out. Tool inspection, pump inspection, hose inspection, things to look for to make sure that your tools and equipment are running correctly. Because we know this at times the malfunction of a tool can create a whole nother set of safety issues that we want to avoid. So we go through, hey, before I'm using this pump, here are some things that I'm looking for. Here are some places that I need to check out, whether if I'm using a square drive. I'm going to check out the sockets, make sure the sockets are in good working order. If I'm, my pumps, I'm going to use a hose on there. I'm going to check those hoses, make sure that there aren't any damaged spots to those hoses where I could get some hydraulic fluid shooting out of there and create a whole other set of issues. So we take this section very seriously. We want, it's placed at the end of the course with a purpose, and that purpose is, you've got all this information that's been handed to you, and we want you to walk away with the last thing that ran through your mind is all the safety features, all the safety concepts that you need to be thinking about, whether it's communication, if it's a two-man team, one's working on the tool, one's working, holding the remote. Sometimes three-person crews if you have somebody on a backup wrench. Things to look for, places where you absolutely don't want your hands to be. These are all things that we will emphasize, and we want that to be a lasting, the lasting thing that they're walking away with. So, you see this safety section at the very end, the conclusion of the course. I don't want you to think that we've stuck it at the end. It's sprinkled throughout the entire course, integrated in all the different sections, but we want to emphasize that as we conclude out. So just kind of a summary, we have basic principles. We'll get into, like I said, we'll get into some of the math and science. It's not a course where we require the students or participants of that course. We're not requiring them to do a bunch of math and science, but we're going to introduce that just so they kind of understand what's going on inside that bolt and why it's going to react a certain way over and over again if it's kept within certain parameters. It's a good course. Like I said, typically, this is a course that would be provided by the sales reps, although there's some cases where the training managers would provide this as well. So from here, we're going to take a few questions. Got a couple of questions coming in, and we've got two different places. One's the Q&A, one is the chat. Let's see here. The first question I've got is, are these courses widely accessible, and are there specific people that are able to present these courses? Also, how many people can be on the course? So these are widely accessible. If you have, all you really need is access to a sales rep. And I believe, Dave Burdick, if you'll help me out on this, I believe if you will contact sales@hightorque.com, they can get you in touch with your closest sales rep, and that sales rep can provide you the information to get you lined up with one of these courses. The bolting basics does not have a minimum or maximum on how many people can be in the course. That being said, you want it to be a group that is manageable. And what I mean by that is, if you're in a shop that has things going on and you have a group of 70 people, a lot of times you'll have a difficult time making sure everyone gets all the information. So, it doesn't need to be 5 or 6 people, but at the same time, depending on your location, you may want to set your own maximum as to, making sure everyone's able to be engaged in this, in the information gathering.
Mark, I just wanted to just to chime in here. This
Yes.
is David Burdick with High Torque. Just to also, I wrote on the chat there, you can also go to info, I-N-F-O, at hightorque.com and request just a local or regional training on any of the courses that Mark has mentioned. So that's a real simple place to go there. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thanks, David. I've got another question from Joe. How long does this course take? It typically varies. We can go from anywhere from an hour to a couple of hours. If you know, typically we would talk with, or the sales rep would talk with the customer, find out exactly what they want the emphasis on, and then maybe add some stuff or remove some stuff for the course. If you're if you're a win customer, there's not a lot of pressure vessel information that is going to be beneficial to you. So maybe they remove that part and emphasize more some metal and metal joints. So I would say between an hour and 2 hours, also depending on class size, because you have class participation that can make that a little bit longer as well. Where does this course take place? The course 99% of the time takes place at your site. We would like to come to you, that way it's easier to gather people at your site than it is to send them all to one place. So that is typically how we do it. Although we have had situations where people have requested that we do it off-site, so people don't get called out, and we can make arrangements for that as well. Let's see here. John says, how do I register for this course? Again, the info at hightorque.com, or if you know your rep, contact your rep, and that rep can get it set up either through us, or they themselves can get that set up as well. Last one, Mario. Is this course available online? We are currently working on getting a course catalog put together of available online courses, and especially for the near future, it's somewhat uncertain as to, no one's given us a date. Hey, you can get back on the road at this point, and so we're doing our best to get some online courses up and running in the very near future that will be available to our customers, so they can get training. Even though we can't get out to you face to face, they can get some training, some of the trainings that don't require that face to face, the hands-on stuff. There's a lot of things that we can do that we can still get you information. So we are absolutely working on getting these courses available online, and this would be one of those kind of in a similar format where it would be the full presentation, not just a few hand-picked slides. It would be the full presentation that would be available to your people as well. All right, I am not seeing any more questions. Let's see. All right, so if there are no more questions, I just want to thank everyone. I hope everyone stays safe. As far as, one last question from Thomas. The course costs. The bolting basics course is a free course. Like I said, it would come with a high torque card, a completion card. This is part of the service that high torque offers. So this particular course is free of charge from, like I said, your sales rep, or occasionally the training managers as well. Muhammad asks, would you provide a certification? It comes with a high torque certificate, or a high torque card. All right, it looks like this will conclude us. Thank you very much for joining in today. If you have any other questions, please do not hesitate. My information's there at the bottom. You can reach out with any questions that you may come up with in the next 30 minutes or 2 days or whatever. Um, Again, appreciate you joining in today, and I hope everyone stays safe, stays healthy. Godspeed to everyone. Thank you.